Hello, my name is Sunny Neal. I am a collaboration expert and a midlife creation coach. Leah, thank you for the opportunity to present to you guys and pleased to meet you all. I believe I will see you in August for a quick session on community engagement. So very keen to start this conversation with you now. Quick background on me, I'm married. We have 4 children. I moved to Castlemaine in 2010, and I actually moved to Castlemaine because I did a job interview with Leah and she offered me a role up here. Otherwise, I probably would not have come. Or then again, if you want to look at it from a deeper perspective, maybe I would have been drawn here anyway. I'm going to bring a couple of distinctions to this conversation. Putnam's social capital, Ken Wilber's levels of consciousness, and then a little bit of maybe Ralph Steiner's kind of more spiritual science. We'll see if we can get through all of that in already 4 minutes. Oh, God. If not, we'll get into it in August. First off, we'll start with social capital. So Castlemaine there are 3 kinds of social capital. There's bonding, bridging, and linking. Bonding capital is the deep relationships that exist in a community, and Castlemaine doesn't have a great deal of that, or at least not the community that I work in. What Castlemaine does have is a great deal of bridging capital. So the kinds of people that come to this place have linkages and networks and skills to develop those relationships that are probably beyond the norm for most of these communities. And it tends to attract like-minded people. When I meet people in the train who are like me, I share about Castlemaine, and some of them move here. So there's something quite unique about that quality of bridging capital that is generated in this town that has led to a lot of the quite extraordinary things that happen here, from the Castlemaine Festival to the local cafe scene to to the reactions that this community has had through COVID, which have been extraordinary. I mean, I didn't know the people in my street very well at all before COVID, and now we have WhatsApp groups, and we share experiences in chicken coop construction and composting and recipes and all that kind of stuff, and it just wasn't there before. So that's very strong in this town, and linking capital is also very strong. It's the people's ability in this community to reach out beyond the community and bring things in that they need. I mean, Castlemaine is on the national musical venue list, which for its size just makes no sense at all. But there you go. That's the kind of community that it is. So it is something special, and it does attract a particular quality of people to it. Now, it's a chicken and the egg conversation as to why that happened. But I know that when I first encountered Castlemaine, it didn't seem very attractive to me. And when Leah did first raise this topic, I shared with her the story, which I don't think I'd shared previously. I was driving through Castlemaine perchance with my wife and the kids, and it was a rainy day in 29, just at the end of 2010, I think maybe the floods had just broken. Sorry, at the end of 2009, the floods had just started. We didn't know that yet. The drought had broken. It was grey and dismal, and I remember looking out the dripping window of my car at this regional Victorian town and saying to Deborah, what kind of idiot would live in a shithole like this? And it turns out that kind of idiot is me. Because over 10 years I have tried to leave this community several times, and have literally been drawn back to it, almost against my will. Leah uses the term magnetism. It really has been against my will. The first time my wife and I and the kids traveled in Europe for a year, and then we came back with the intention of finding a way just to get out of here as fast as we could. And then we went to Asia for a year, and we almost felt forced back. My daughter was turning 12 and 13. She had to go to high school. We'd run out of money. Asia just wasn't working for us in that environment. We just wanted to come back. And, well, we didn't want to come back, but we just felt like we were constrained to come back. And each time we've come back, our relationship with the community has shifted a little bit. And this is where I want to bring in this concept of life phases. So it's interesting because there are, in every stage of your life, you have a different relationship with the things around you and with yourself, and it's not unique. So it's not unique to you, I should say. It's consistent throughout cultures and throughout times that human beings go through certain stages of their relationship with things at different stages of their life. And in your early or late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, early 30s, into your early 40s, mid 40s, and on into your 50s, your relationship to things makes a fundamental transition from you're basically looking to the world around you to give you what you need, to you being someone who gives back to it. And that transition happens naturally between about 38 and 42. Now, when I arrived in Castlemaine, I was 35. And looking at it now, preparing for this conversation, I really realized that I was looking to Castlemaine to give me my tribe, to give me the experience of belonging to something that I wanted, and that I certainly wasn't getting in the monoculture that was my life in Melbourne. And I remember saying, to Leah in a boardroom one day, a year or so after I'd been here, that I'd almost had this experience of seeing myself riding down the road in Castlemaine, the person that I was going to be in 10 years' time, and being proud of that person. What's interesting though, now, 10 years on, is the person that I am riding down the road is not the one that I wanted to be at 35. It has shifted. And my relationship with the community has shifted with it. My wife and I, when we went to France, we went looking for Europe, we went looking, and Asia, looking for mentors, for people to learn from, to expand, to prepare ourselves for the second half of our life, from our 40s onwards, which we knew were going to be, a challenging period. The 40s are a challenging period. And we didn't find them. We looked everywhere. And what we discovered was that, we were part of a network of people all around the world who were searching for the next level of consciousness, for the next form of leadership, I suppose you could say. And that these people weren't really meant to live together. They were meant to do the work they were doing in different places. It's sometimes a very isolating and lonely space to be in, where you're always carving out a new space. And I'm certain you guys have had this experience. And we were looking for a place where we could live with those kinds of people. And what we realized was that that's not how it's meant to be. You're not meant to find that group of people at this time in history. You're meant to be actually carving that space kind of in a bit of a lonely journey by yourself. But you bring these linkages with other people who are doing the same thing. And we built those networks around the world of people who are like that. And there is a concentration of them in this community. But my relationship with the community shifted, whereas in the early years it was very much of how is Castlemaine going to help me create the perfect life for myself. It's become now a place where I can stay whole and healthy and sane, where I can continue to do the work that I want to do, build those linkages with people, allow my children to go through their teens and the stages that they're going through, and also discover what is for me my leitmotif, which is the Rudolf Steiner's conception of the recurring theme of your life, the thing that you spend the first half of your life discovering and the second half of your life expressing. And I'm 45, so I'm right at that stage where I'm starting to shift from, the search for the perfect life to becoming, giving myself to public purpose. So Castlemaine for me has definitely changed in how I experience it according to the stages of life that I am at. Now, I'm running out of time and there's a lot more that I wanted to share about, but I believe we will have time to do some of that in August. So these are the questions I wanted to leave you guys with to think about between now and when we get to talk next. First is, how has what you see in your community changed as you've shifted over your lifetime, over the various phases of your life? Secondly, how has your leadership changed over that time period, and what's the relationship between where you choose to live, the community you choose to surround yourself in, and what you get to give back? And I'll just extrapolate on that for one moment. Living in Castlemaine has made a profound impact on how I lead and work in the world. It's taught me humility, which I was quite narcissistic before I came here. It comes with the age, but I had to work with people at all different levels of life and socioeconomic backgrounds and learn to love them living in the country. And that's really powerfully influenced the kind of work that I get to do. I don't think my business would be around public service if I didn't live in the community. I was certainly drawn in the city to being cosmopolitan and working with the big names, Nike and BHP and big corporates. And now I'm just not. I mean, I do a bit of that work, but it's very rare. It's almost always public agencies. And thirdly, living in the country has given me an access to seeing my business as enough. I don't really need it to be anything beyond what is providing for me and my family and my needs to contribute to the world, and to feel a bit special about myself, which goes with the temperament that I have. But that's the kind of world view that living in the country has given me, and it's informed my leadership. So how has living in your community informed your leadership? And the third, because you're from a community development or engagement background, I would ask you to have a look at what is the narrative that underpins the community that you have actually chosen to live in. And when I say that, when I did the flood recovery work that won these awards in Central Victoria, the first place I always looked to was what is the narrative that defines the community that we're going to tap into to do the work that we're going to do to rebuild or re-engage, I should say, with this community. Kara's book, for example, where most of my work was focused, had a very settler conception of itself, charging out onto the frontier. Whereas Castlemaine has a very different flavour, very cosmopolitan, we can engage with the world look. Newstead has a very strong, we're different from everybody else. Bendigo very much wants to be like Melbourne. Every community has its own flavour, and if you can identify that, you can tap into something that's unique to that community that you can work with and speak to. So they're the 3 questions. I've gone well over time. I look forward to seeing you in August. Ciao.